Welcome, everybody. I'm going to keep an eye on the waiting room as a few more people join us, but thank you for those of you that are already here. And I'm Ashley Scott. I'm on staff, and I'm just here to help chat and help move the conversation along. But I know the people that you guys are most interested in hearing from. We have Robin Scott from Eastman, and then our two OBs, right? We have Rebecca and Peter here tonight. So I'm going to let you guys, why don't we sort of go from youngest to oldest to start. Oh, let me get Josh back in here. And start just with how I know you have to think way back now, Rebecca, to the very beginning of starting at Oberlin. And tell us a little bit about how you got connected to Oberlin, and then how getting started was for you, and then we'll go on from there.
Yeah, hello everyone. So I just started teaching at Oberlin this year, which was crazy, partly because it was 2020 and we were partly remote and partly in person, and it was really bizarre. But it was also crazy because I also perform a lot and I have a big, performing career. And I was trying to blend this teaching and performing thing in this very strange year. So I just started this fall, and it's been a lot of learning about how teaching in academia works, and also getting to know all of the students for the first time. And I got connected to Oberlin. I'm an alum from Oberlin. I went here from 2011, 7 to 11. And then I left and went to Rice and did some things abroad. And I started playing early music, Baroque cello and viola da gamba. And I ended up coming back to the Cleveland area and working in early music. And the teacher who I had worked with at Oberlin on Baroque cello and viola da gamba was retiring. And so I'm just, for the first time, I'm a visiting professor covering her students for this year. So that's an introduction.
That's a fantastic introduction. Absolutely. So how did you, was there an application process, or did you just work with the teacher that you are sort of taking over her studio? How did the connection happen?
Because it was not an application process. It ended up being a recommendation for someone to fill this position. Apparently the school is kind of going through a lot of changes right now, and the department's going through some changes, so I'm kind of covering for her students who are in their junior and senior year, and we're going to just see what happens.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Wow, that's exciting. All right, Robin, tell us about the beginning of Eastman. How long has it been?
5.5 years now. I'm here because almost exactly 6 years ago, I got a call from David Ying asking me if I wanted to audition for the Ying Quartet. So I did, and I got the job.
Nice.
And we're the quartet in residence here at Eastman. And the quartet's been here for many more years than I've been here. They've been here 20, 21, 22 years or something like that now. And my wife is principal cellist at the Rochester Philharmonic here, and she teaches orchestral rep at Eastman as well. So it just happened that when I auditioned here, the quartet mentioned that, oh yeah, there's a principal cello position open at the Rochester Philharmonic. I was like, oh really? So we came here to find a place to live in June of 2015, and for her to take the audition, and she won the audition, and we found a place to live. And so by the time we moved, we both had jobs here. So that's, pretty great. It's a real blessing. So
you guys are either really, really lucky or really, really good. Or maybe both.
Both. I was about to say.
I don't know. So yeah, it's very unusual for married couples in the music world to even over a long period of time to find jobs in the same place, let alone in the same building. But the Rochester Philharmonic plays in Eastman's Hall. So
Wow.
it's nice. We get to have lunch together sometimes. So not so much now that we have 2 kids, but so yeah, that's
so Robin, you mentioned something that some of us may be familiar with and some of us may not like totally wrap our heads around. Tell us a little bit about what a quartet in residence means.
So we're a traveling string quartet. You know, we play concerts here and there, wherever anybody will pay us to play, or these days not pay us to play. And then but then we're in residence because we teach here. 3 of us teach private students at Eastman. I have a smallish studio right now, I think 6 at the moment, and also Philip and David, the violist and cellist respectively, also teach privately, and then our second violinist Janet coaches a lot of chamber groups, and all of us coach chamber groups, and we run a chamber music seminar for all the freshmen incoming. Well, actually, specifically string quartet seminar for all the incoming violinists, violists, and cellists, and we run them through a bunch of different repertoire, different periods. Start with Haydn and Mozart, the beginning of the first semester, and then actually jump to 20th century stuff, second half of the semester, and then we go to romantic stuff, and then we finish with Beethoven at the end of the first year. So, because some of the kids, you never know, some of them show up and they've never played a string quartet or never played almost any chamber music. So we really try to show them the broad variety of the repertoire, and also the nature of the ensemble, the intricacy, how to tune, all these sorts of things. So, and we do all sorts of things at the school. So we're really, I would say, pretty integral to the chamber music and the string department.
Very cool. Very cool. Thank you for answering that sort of winding extra question.
No, that's fine.
And to put a fine point on it too, because I think that's, you know, the dream of a lot of people is to join a string quartet, and there is a string quartet in residence at a great school like Eastman. Wow, that's like that's the holy grail of, you know, of appointments, because you have the stability of the school behind you. Is there a set number of weeks that you guys are in residence at school?
We're full time here. We're all tenured associate professors. So yeah, I joke that I'm at school, or the quartet is probably at school more than any other professor, because we rehearse there 3 hours a day, Monday through Friday, generally, when we're in town. So once you add it all up, I'm there all the time. So, you know, and we try not to be on the road more than 2 weeks out of any month. That almost never ends up being a problem. So except when we go to China or something like that for a long tour, but we're full-time here. Very
cool. Well, all right, Peter.
So
way back when?
I've been at this for a while here. I auditioned for and got my first teaching job in 1981. I was a graduate of Eastman School, and that year there were 3 or 4 jobs in the country for viola. And I'm not going to answer. Well, I'll just make a. I wanted to be. Sorry. I was pretty small C Catholic about what I wanted to do with my career. I just want to make beautiful music, and I was doing orchestral route, and I also did the teaching route. And the first job I got was in Wichita State University in Wichita, Kansas. And it was playing in an orchestra, in a really great regional orchestra, and teaching at a school. So that was great. And playing in a string quartet. We didn't rehearse 3 hours a day, but we rehearsed a couple times a week, which is for a faculty string quartet. We did 3 or 4 concerts a year. And so it was a great first job to do all that stuff. And since then, I spent 5 years there, and we can tell more of the story as it applies later, but I spent 14 years at Northwestern, and I've been here at Oberlin for 22 years. So I'm about to celebrate my 40th year of teaching in the fall. And I had big celebrations that I was going to have planned, and it's not going to happen. But, I've also taught a semester at Eastman, and I taught a year at Cleveland Institute, and done a bunch of fill-ins at Indiana. So I've seen a bunch of different things. So I've seen about practically everything there is to do in teaching, and I still love it.
I
You do
didn't.
still love
Maybe,
it.
maybe you told me, but I totally forgot that you graduated from Eastman. Who did you study with here?
Okay. I think it's a funny story because, I mean, how it happened. Those of you who know me know that I think that God has a path for our lives that we can mess up, but it's sometimes hard to mess up. So I was graduating, I'll get to it, Robin, I promise. I was graduating from New England Conservatory, and a great school, and I was very happy there. And yet I thought it would be good to go to a different school for graduate school, meet different people, prove myself again, do all that kind of stuff. And so I talked with Heidi Castleman, who was teaching at Eastman, and she accepted me into her studio. Same time, NEC was courting Heidi to teach at NEC. And they told her, well, we have these people like, do you know Peter Slowik? Oh yeah, I really like him. We have students like that here. So she made room for me in her studio at NEC. And so we had one morning, my wife and I were not married, but we had one morning to find a place in Rochester to live. And I arrived this pouring down rain and day in Rochester. And I met with the academic dean, and he said, I'm sorry, you can't be assigned to Heidi Castleman. She has a limit, and it's not going to happen. She made room for you at NEC. And I said, well, I didn't tell her that. So fortunately, the difference between the schools, two schools, and I'm not disparaging any of them, but there was a student who was flunking out at Eastman. And so he followed Heidi to NEC. And space opened up for me. And so that was the start, really, of lots of good things happen. I mean, it was the middle of a string of good things happening, but a string of things that led to my academic career really was working with Heidi and understanding everything about that. So yeah, I studied with Heidi Castleman, but that was Eastman still has a great faculty, but back in the day, in the 70s and early 80s, like, name somebody that's like really super famous now, and they all taught at Eastman. In that,
Sylvia Rosenberg, Don Weilerstein, yeah.
The whole Cleveland Quartet. You guys are the successors of the Cleveland Quartet, basically, right?
Yeah.
So that's a wonderful shoes to fill, and the school has been, the resident quartet has been such an integral part at Eastman for a long time.
Yeah.
We have sort of the two conservatories that we're sort of representing in this conversation are both really strong academically as well. I remember when I was in college, which was a minute ago, Eastman specifically had a reputation for their academic side of the music. Was it that same way when you were there, Peter? Was the academics as much of a thing to consider when you were auditioning?
I was a graduate student, so no. I mean, the graduate students are just concerned with getting their playing together and getting a job. I do remember, and when you're involved in school, you get to choose things in the curriculum. So I remember taking a course on Renaissance music because I thought, I know about all this other stuff. I know a lot. I played all these Beethoven symphonies, and I know all this stuff. I don't know anything about Renaissance music. I found out, speaking of academics, that class was really hard. And I was like, sorry, Rebecca, but this is Renaissance, okay? It's maybe even a little bit before some of your stuff, but I mean, like 1300s and 1400s, like it's a completely different language. And I didn't really want to take the time to learn that language. And back then it was not as cool as what, early music groups are doing with now. But I think back at the, Renaissance music back in the 1970s and 80s was like really, really dusty. And so, yeah, it was hard. I found Robin, when I filled in for George Taylor at Eastman, his students talked extensively about the rigors of the music academics at Eastman.
Yeah, theory.
Yeah, that's what I've always
heard.
Ear
training, they take it seriously. But then the funny thing is that I find myself talking to students about theory way more than I expected to, quite honestly. Why does this harmony sound different from this harmony? And so it makes me appreciate when they actually have some clue about theory. It's nice. But yeah, I'll get some complaints occasionally. My students actually, I found for the most part, don't complain too much, except these days with all the like asynchronous classes. I think, well, most places, I think everything's just a little bit harder when nothing's in person and everything's online. I think that's difficult seems like for students everywhere.
So Rebecca, tell us, you said that some things have been Zoom or some things have been in person. I've seen you in the hallways a couple of times, or I've seen you through glass doors. Tell us what you've been doing here in these times in ensembles.
So at Oberlin, I've been teaching. Thankfully, I've been able to teach all the students here in person, except for one who decided to be off campus for the whole year. So that's been amazing to actually hear people in person. But then I also have a pretty large cello studio through the community music school in Oberlin, and that's all been on Zoom. And some kids have great internet and some kids have terrible internet, and it's just like every day is it's a new struggle with Zoom. And then professionally, there have been some concerts that have no audiences that we've recorded wearing masks, and some we all get tested before we record, and then we record without masks. I don't know. Everyone's trying to be safe in different ways, and but just to be able to hear someone play for you in person was the first time that someone played for me in September when the semester started. I started crying behind my mask because I was like, someone's actually playing the cello for me in person. It was just so wonderful to hear that in real time. I miss that.
Rebecca, Robin, and I are really, really, really spoiled by where we are. Oberlin has great facilities, and Eastman has some of the great, Kilburn Hall is a really, really, really great hall. And yep. I hadn't been in a hall because I was, for distancing reasons, I had my studio class in just the most ugly room in Oberlin, the large orchestral room. And I hadn't heard anybody in a concert hall from March 12th to end of October. And I had that same reaction when I heard somebody in a concert. I was like, oh my God, this is what I actually get to do. This is so beautiful.
Yeah.
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 So Rebecca, do you, pre-COVID, what type of performing do you usually do? Because you've got this sort of unique, beyond the typical cello experience and skill.
Yeah, I when I went to Oberlin, it's a longer answer, but when I went to Oberlin, I got exposed to early music and, Baroque music and some Renaissance music. But I also really love to play romantic music and 21st century music, and I still can't decide what I want to do when I grow up. So before COVID, I was playing in symphonies and chamber ensembles and early music orchestras, and I don't know, I was just gigging a lot. And I still really love to play as wide of a history of music as I can. I just love switching and learning and seeking to find how to express with the language of the time that a piece was written in. So I was playing with La Paul's Fire and Les Delise and Three Notched Road. Those are some early music groups, and then Akron Symphony, Ashland Symphony, and then some local people, chamber music and things like that. So
very cool.
Yeah.
And Robin, do you play with, and this might, I mean, you rehearse with your quartet so much. Do you play with any other groups? Do you do any solo work?
Yeah. I mean, here and there I get invitations to do this and that, and I almost always leap at invitations to do something other than just quartet, because we do so many, a lot of concerts just in the quartet, and it's, it is what it is. It's amazing, but at the same time, you want to make sure that you can still play a recital, still play a concerto. I was supposed to do like 3 weeks of guest concertmaster with American Ballet Theater in May. Of course, that didn't happen. I was really excited about that. I thought it was going to be really fun. So yeah, I try to do a lot of other things. I play a lot of chamber music with other friends as well, people from other quartets, things in New York. So yeah.
That's incredible. Now, Peter, I remember when I was a student, you were still doing some work with Chicago Symphony. Are you still performing much?
It's more project based now, because yeah, the what is this? The seasons. I will use my name with this to avoid anybody else. So the seasons of a performer's life are: I want a mature Peter Slowik. Get me a mature Peter Slowik. Then get me they are, who's Peter Slowik? Okay. Then get me a mature Peter Slowik. Then get me Peter Slowik. Then I want a young Peter Slowik. And then who's Peter Slowik? So it's a little bit cyclical. I mean, but when I was younger, I thought that people who reached age 60, and I'm past age 60, just naturally fell apart. Like, I never heard anybody after age 60 that sounded like anything I wanted to sound like, except Nathan Milstein, but that's a different thing. But then my friends started turning 60, and they, Richard Young, terrific violist of the Vermeer Quartet, said, you can still do the same thing. You just have to work at it, And so, but the point is that your life goes through these things, and Rebecca is just changing her life now from the omnivore kind of thing and take a lot of different things to, I'm going to become more specialized and have more choices. When you start off, you don't have as many choices, right? And then Robin is in something and he may decide that the quartet is not for him at some point, whatever. But in terms of the Credo ideal, I think that we each have something that God has made us really, really amazing at. And the more we do that thing, the better we are of service to the world, right? And so I started to learn about this I took three big scale orchestra auditions. I got the job in one, I got in the finals for the other one, and I didn't get past the first round of the third one. And this is a very, very good track record for a limited number of auditions. But the first 6 teaching jobs I applied for, I got offered all of them. So I realized that there was something unusual about the way I related to that field. And so, this first job in Wichita lasted 5 years. When I was growing up, I wanted to be either the shortstop for the Chicago White Sox or play in the Chicago Symphony. And the White Sox thing was definitely not going to happen because my parents didn't even let me touch a hard ball because they said, you'll break your fingers, blah, 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 whatever. And yet I was a violist. So I don't know what kind of performing career they thought I was going to have. But but then I moved to Chicago, and indeed I won position to play with Chicago Symphony as a sub and extra, which was plenty in addition to the full-time job at Northwestern. So, listening to that orchestra play Richard Strauss probably better than any other orchestra in the world, when I recorded also Sprach Zarathustra with the orchestra in Orchestra Hall, that was a nice moment. And that, having part-time job in Chicago Symphony, equivalent of like 3 months a year, was pretty good part-time job. But when I came to Oberlin, I made the choice that they weren't likely to hire me from Oberlin. So I do projects, in the summer. I get to, hire quartets at Credo and play viola quintets with them. But there comes a time when people just tell us, maybe your words are going to be more influential than your noises, and that's something we have to accept. I don't think I play worse now. It's just that people are interested in, attractive people like Rebecca and Robin. So.
Well, before I ask my next group question, those of you who are on here live with me, remember, if a question pops in your mind or something comes up and you're like, oh, I wonder, type it in the chat so that because I've got the chat open over here, and I will bring those up or loop it into one of the other questions so that I make sure and get all of your questions. I'm really glad you guys are all here. Rebecca, I want to come back to you for a second, and I want to ask you about when you were in high school. did you have, and Robin, I'll come to you next with the same sort of concept. Did you have a vision of wanting to teach in conservatory when you were like high school level? Was that something you aspired to, or is it just something that has evolved as the doors have opened in your career?
Well, when I was in high school, I didn't aspire to much. I really didn't know what I wanted to be. I played the cello because I was okay at it, and everyone was like, "Oh, you should play the cello." But I was a pretty weird kid. I read a lot, and I thought I should just like go into philosophy, and I didn't really think about what I wanted to do with my life. But it was really funny. My mom always thought I should be a teacher. She's like, "I think you'd make a really good teacher." And I was like, yeah, whatever, I'm not going to be a teacher. And so I kind of followed this path of going to conservatory and doing my master's and studying cello because people kept saying I was good at it. But I didn't really, and I love performing. I love playing for people. I love sharing music. I love the community that comes with being in an orchestra or in a chamber ensemble. Just having those relationships for many years. I love all of that. But it was just sort of by accident that I fell into teaching. First in some public schools in Texas, and then through some, the school here in Oberlin. And at the end of every teaching day, I just was so happy. And I was like, why is that different than after? I love playing concerts. I'm happy after concerts, but it was like a different happy. And I started to realize that it was because more of who I am was being required in that hour with the student. It's not just making an artistic statement. It's not just thinking analytically. It's who is this other person? Where are they? How can I help them get to the next step? How can I help them become a better human being? And should I say something or nothing? Or, do they need space or do they need to be pushed, And so I just felt like more of who I was required. And I love that. It's such a challenge and I'm not good at it yet, but I'm just so happy. I think that's kind of how I've fallen into it.
Plus, I think you have a lot less munchies after a day of teaching than you do at the concert.
That's accurate.
You just have to like eat.
Yes, I have way fewer steaks at 11 p.m. It's true.
So Robin, high school Robin.
My goodness.
What did you envision?
I envisioned a solo career, of course.
True violinist to the core.
There's nothing else that a violinist would do, right? No, I did like actually playing chamber music as well. But I always felt that just being a violinist was sort of a foregone conclusion at a certain point. Probably by the time I was 14 or even 13, I just sort of assumed. Maybe before that, I don't know. But although, because Peter mentioned this also, there was a time when I played more baseball than violin, and I was a pitcher primarily. Shortstop was not bad too, but but it just, my parents are both musicians as well, and it just sort of seemed like that was what I was going to do, and I worked hard at it, and teaching didn't, like, I never thought about it. I never really thought about necessarily becoming a teacher, but it's something I really like. Very enjoyable. And one of the things I found, I don't inherently get more energy. It kind of depends on the student. When I have a student, for instance, who really works hard and improves from week to week and really listens to what I'm saying, I find it gives me like more energy than I had before, oftentimes. And if I have several of these people, then I can go through several hours of teaching, just no problem whatsoever. But when you have a student that maybe doesn't work too hard or whatever, then it takes all your energy away from you. So it's interesting how that works. When I talk to a lot of other teachers, they say pretty similar things. I don't know if others find that here, but I really love teaching. I also love it because I find it, I benefit a huge amount from it. Often when I'm struggling with something in my own playing, I find it in my students, and it's much easier to identify other people's problems than it is your own. So but when you see your own problems in other people, you realize that the solution you just gave to them is probably the solution that you need for yourself too. So this happens to me on a regular basis, because there's almost no time when I'm not struggling with something in my playing. So you learn so much from doing it, not necessarily from the students themselves. Sometimes you learn directly from the students themselves. Sometimes you learn just by having to help them solve their problems and try something new. be creative. You can try. Sometimes you say something 10 times or say 10 different things about the same subject, and nothing seems to work, but on the 11th maybe you'll get it. So,
or they come back from summer camp and someone else has given them the perfect wording, and it's the same thing you were trying to teach them.
That happened to me big time 2 summers ago. My student had 3 weeks with another violin teacher, and she came back. I was like, wow, fantastic. So much better than you sounded. And now she went and studied with him. I'm so happy for her. So it's funny how these things occasionally happen. So teaching is really fantastic. Performing can be too.
I was going to say something about teaching and having been at it for length of time. When I came to Northwestern, I'd just been teaching for about as long as maybe a year or two less than Robin had, and I didn't know if I was any good. I got the job and stuff like that, but I had a student who was one of those students that drained energy, Robin, the whole first semester, the whole year. And he came back, and at the end of the summer, this guy could play like everything. And I was convinced that, that I didn't know anything. And that he had met some guru somewhere. And I said, so what did you do? How did this happen? He said, well, I went home and thought about everything you told me and tried it, and it worked. So we learn, a lot of times we learn you learn about your own playing by developing the systems. And I feel like I learn 2 things a year. And so I've been teaching for 40 years. I know about 80 things about string playing. I think the 2 things you learn when you're teaching are like foundational level, like this atom connects with that atom. And those are fantastic. And you can use those as building blocks for other things. And so with a lot of experience, you do get easier ways of explaining things. So I don't know, what the people I taught, Rebecca, you said you don't feel like you know much about teaching, but I'm sure you know a lot, and you're helping students a lot. But if you look back on it, you'll say, I didn't know anything, literally then. You know what I learned a couple of years ago? No, last year, I think it was. The point of practicing is to get better. Nobody told me that. Think about it. Has anybody ever told you the point of practicing is to get better? It's just assumed that everybody knows this. But to get better also means to throw out everything that holds you down, right? So the things that ground you, you have to get rid of. I learned that after 38 years of teaching. I also learned from being a teacher what a good lesson was. I don't know about you guys, but when I was a student, looking back, and I know this is something I also learned in the same year, 2 years ago, what a good lesson is. And when I was a student, I thought a good lesson was when I hid all my deficiencies from my teacher. If my teacher could not find out the things I couldn't do, that was a great lesson. Which is, that's the worst possible lesson. You want your teacher just to, dive right into the cesspool of stuff you can't do, right? And kind of work it out with you. So, but I mean, what did I know? It took me until I was like past 60 to learn that. So
I think the question is really interesting though, because no one really has, I don't know about you other, any of you kids or anyone else on the Zoom, but I feel like teaching is often thrown in like, oh, hopefully you'll be an orchestral player, but you'll always teach on the side. Or like, oh, you'd be a great soloist. I'm sure you'll teach on the side. But it's like this thing that's thrown over here. Yeah, you're seeing nods. Yeah, that's how it was said to me too. And it's too bad, because teaching requires all of your professional experience, all of your business experience, all of your relational and empathetic, and all of this experience, every part of your life, all your gardening and cooking and all the books you've ever read, everything. It's going to require all of that. And people say, oh, you always do it on the side. No, it's like everything about who you are.
One of the things I'm grateful for is, sorry.
I'm good.
Like when I have to admit that for me, it didn't feel like something I'll do on the side. I mean, I didn't really consider it just because I was working to be a performer, but when it started to present itself as a possibility, it was something I was really welcoming, because not simply for financial reasons, but because from the time I was 17, I was studying with Miriam Fried, and then later with Kim Kashkashian and Don Weilerstein, and all three of whom were some of the greatest performers of their day, and so I loved so much the fact that these astonishingly good musicians also devoted a huge amount of their careers, to even the prime of their careers, to teaching as well, and that they were able to do both. So from an early age, I thought, like, this is what you should do. You should, if you're a good performer, you should also give back. Show some gratefulness. The fact that if you did get an education from these people who are so amazing, that you shouldn't go out there and just only perform. I feel like it's if you do have something to teach, it's like a responsibility that you have for the next generation. And so I love the model that my teachers set for me. They were amazing.
I want to follow up on Don Weatherson. Don Weatherson is maybe the top violin teacher in the world still. I mean, he's been in that position for a considerable length of time. And he's known for eccentricities. Whether or not he actually put an ice cream cone in his pocket, it's urban legend. But he
explained that to me.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. It was an ice cream sandwich, and it was in the wrapper. He feels that element is always forgotten in the story. So he was in the wrapper, and he thought, well, I'll just put it in my pocket for a while. So anyway, sorry, go ahead.
but it kind of all, no, that's good to know. And I'm going to sleep better tonight knowing that. But I did see this when I was my year at Cleveland Institute. Audition days, you can tell who the auditioning students are. They're the ones with clean clothes on and freshly washed hair and stuff like that. And Cleveland Institute is not a hard building to navigate. It's like a square, and Don had been teaching there for like 15 years, and he came out to and he asked this person clearly waiting in the hall for their audition. Excuse me, is there a drinking fountain nearby? So I don't know, but Don was great at realizing the wonder of unpacking things. And when you played chamber music with him, he would say, I don't know, perhaps it's like this. And he would say something like, with this look of like, I really don't know what I'm talking about. And then he would come out with the most genius thing ever in the world. And I wanted to say, Rebecca, I got on that track because you said it needs all these things. It's kind of all consuming. It brings all of you together and uses all of you. I think that great teachers assume they're doing it wrong at all times, because there's so many different ways we have of communicating with you. In a lesson, I could play alongside with you. I could just talk to you for an hour and never demonstrate. I could talk about theory. I could talk about technique. I could play a recording for you. I could talk with you about art or something like that. And so I could play with you on the piano. I could accompany, I could do all these different things. And I always assume that what I'm doing is wrong. And I think that's a really neat thing. The other thing that you should know, all of you students, is that you live 24/7 in the minds of your teachers. And we're thinking, you're on this like treadmill on the back of our minds all the times. And I will, in the middle of breakfast, I'll think about something that for a student that I have at 4 o'clock that afternoon. Or in the middle of mowing the lawn, I'll realize what I should assign for some student for the next week. It's a really, really neat job in that way, but it also, the job is whatever you make of it. And you're all quality people. So this, I mean, Rebecca, tell me how, I'm trying to think of how to phrase this. Tell me how your teaching is or is not defined by the clock hours that Oberlin asks you to do.
Oh, like how things live in my mind?
Yeah, so I mean, so you're supposed to do X hours of work. Is that what you do?
No, absolutely not. Yeah, especially for kids who are having a hard time or who are draining energy, especially those kids. I'm thinking about them as people. What's going on in their life? Maybe not even related to music. How old are they? Where are they developmentally? Is this maybe hormonal, or is this something in their house? And then I'm thinking, okay, well, what can I bring to the lesson that will help them face or take them away from or be a balm, or, very much thinking about those aspects. Or they clearly love music, but they aren't clicking with cello right now. And so I'm just like thinking it's oh yeah, on the mind all the time. Like you're saying, it's a Ferris wheel. And then the students who are doing really well, most of the time especially the college students here, that's what's been so mind-blowing this fall, is working with college students, because I mean, the Oberlin students are coming to me with all this rep, and they're saying, I want to learn this and I want to do this, push me and make it, be hard on me and do, be tough. And I'm like, you sound so good. I'm sorry. Can we take a minute and just pause? So that's a different challenge of how, listening more intensely. How can I be pushing them to the next level? What is the next level? And yeah, so the hours are just paid for by the college, but the rest of it is thinking about. Yeah. What about you, Robin? What's your experience?
Yeah, very much the same. Yeah, and the people who need the most help end up requiring the most time, like extra lessons, especially this semester, because I found, well, I'm not traveling at all. So I might as well offer quite a few extra lessons to the ones that really need it. And I think it's helpful. I hope it's helpful. But yeah, I mean, it's funny. I had to flick away a text earlier because I was texting a student yesterday, seeing how he was doing, having gone home for the break, and telling him, I don't know if you want a lesson, but I have something that I think might help. So I don't know what he said yet. So yeah, it's constantly with you. Sometimes to the annoyance of my wife. I think she'd rather I occasionally leave it behind a little bit more. But it's a wonderful thing to be able to teach, and to be able to teach the music that we have is really pretty tremendous.
So let me follow up on something that you're saying, the music that we have. So I'm going to tell you, after 4 years of teaching career, about 10 years ago, I figured out what I do for a living. And I explained, people, you see them you're on the tube in London, says, so what do you do? I teach at this American conservatory. Oh, what's that like? I teach the greatest music that has ever been written. I get to listen to that music played by the most talented young people in the world. And they come and they ask me to complain about it. And I get to make them do things my way. And it can be a huge kind of power rush to be a teacher, because we are the conduit between you and who you want to be as a performer. And so when I was a freshman, my teacher played with his viola way out here, and like, he was just not efficient. He was super, super talented. But, you know, everybody in the department started laughing at me because I was playing like my teacher. I didn't even know I was, but I just instinctively, I wanted to do what he did. And so I did everything, you know. He was also like married to a super, they were in People magazine. I don't know if you know what People magazine was, but he was married to a super famous performing person. And so and he had, you know, he traveled with his viola and his tennis racket. So I wanted all of that, you know. So, so it can be kind of daunting to be that person who everybody's looking to for all that kind of stuff. But it's also really super gratifying to think that you have the responsibility. These people come in bearing their emotions, right? Because our performing is so close to our soul, right? If you play for somebody and they don't like it, it's like they don't like you, right? So anytime we play for people, we're bearing our soul to them. And so these super talented and super, you know, accomplished people come in and they will do anything that you ask them to do. You know, just open my head. I'm going to let you flip all the switches in my amazing brain. It's really cool. Robin, it was interesting. You were saying sometimes the less accomplished students or the students that need help get that kind of help. With my best students at Oberlin, I really have to make sure that they get as many lessons as some of the other people because they're like ready every week. You know, and some of my best students, like I get to the end of the semester and I want to give you 15 lessons. You've only had 13, you know, and we have 13 weeks in the semester here at Oberlin. Yeah, you didn't need any more lessons. You know, I have to look for times. Hey guys, if you want to do something really nice for your teachers, be ready for your lesson every week. I had no idea. When I was a senior, I went out to lunch with my teacher in Boston, and he said, you know, you're an exceptional student because you were ready for your lesson every week. It's like, yeah. So, no, he said, no, that doesn't happen. It's about 5% of the people, 10% of the people that are like ready without complaints every week.
So that sort of leads us to our sort of flipping the topic here. You guys have talked about some of the stuff that is fantastic and exciting and awesome about your job as conservatory professors. Without maybe showing your cards too much, if you can, what is the one thing that is either most difficult or most taxing, or the thing that you would delete from your job if you had just a choice to delete one thing? Rebecca?
That's really
I see you thinking.
Yeah, I'm thinking.
While she's thinking, I will say that in any career, people describe your job as a third of the things that you would pay to do, a third of the things you like doing, and a third of the things you would want to get rid of. That's in most careers.
It's true. But Peter, can you say what's the one thing you would delete from your job description?
Well, Rebecca's not into this yet, but maybe someday you can. Committees. And this year, oh my goodness, with COVID, you'd make 14,000 plans for something, and then 2 weeks later, everything would change, and you make those same 14,000 plans again. But committees are fun because you get to be with the theory people and the music history people, and these people who speak in sentences that would take me 35 minutes to construct. And they just speak extemporaneously like this. It's quite remarkable. My favorite was a colleague describing somebody else who was so laid back as to be prone, as to appear prone. But no, committees are necessary. And when you get to a full-time job, and Rebecca doesn't have this yet, mercifully for you. I don't know, Robin, you might be exempt because of your lofty performing position.
No, not completely.
But every school, people have to make decisions. And what the theory people think matters, and what the dean of students think that matters, and what the registrar thinks that matters. All those points of view matter, and you better have people representing you who represent your, the performing artist's opinion. So so after a while that just happens. And so if you get good at that, then people start, you start doing that a lot.
In typical Peaceful way, you had a way of saying what you would delete and then talking about how good it is. So I just have so much respect for you and the way that you're able to do that.
There's always
Robin.
Good, yeah.
Well, it would be related to that. I feel like I see in academia in general a ever burgeoning bureaucracy of administration, which I think is threatening education, actually. And with it, I think, in a sense, the sort of idea that I think that administrators often think of themselves as visionaries who guide the path of the school rather than the faculty. And so the reason I think this is a similar sort of thought is that because I've served on a couple of committees, like for search committees for new faculty, and actually that's an enjoyable, relatively enjoyable committee. But I do feel more and more that the path forward for many schools is going to be more faculty self-administration to some extent, because it's very expensive, it turns out, to hire thousands of senior administrators. And the people who bear these costs are the students. And the administrators can then start to get things a little warped in their minds, and they start to think of students as customers, and even would, start to refer to them in such a way. So I feel like that's administrative tasks are like the thing I'm probably worst at. But I do feel as though it's something that I need to do probably more of, or that faculty kind of need to do more of if we want to see schools move in the right direction in the future. So
great point. Rebecca, do you have a delete button? If you had a delete button, what would it be? What would the thing be?
As Peter was talking, I was like, yeah, it would be nice if I didn't have to write so many emails to organize people to get them into a lesson for half an hour on Zoom. But then since it's been repeated, I think if I could really delete something, maybe this is going too deep, but if I could really delete something, I would love to delete fear out of the lesson experience, both for students and for myself, because I think fear gets in the way, like Peter was saying about like students come in and they think if the teacher doesn't see all my struggles, then I've succeeded. And if that fear could go away and we could just play and face that we're imperfect, that we're human. If I could teach without fear, I don't care if you don't like me, like I'm going to be honest and truthful with you. Like if we could be safe in that space, that would be amazing. That always is the best lesson anyway. So
a fearless lesson. I love that idea of deleting fear from the lesson.
I can give you, by the way, one quick answer to your very uncomplicated answer to your question, which is letters of recommendation. That's what I'd get rid of.
But then you get to wax eloquent about positive and the struggles.
You know why? Because very rarely can you really believe what teachers write about their students.
But absolutely. But let me say that honesty is really important.
Oh yeah.
And finding the kind words to say. I've had to write students. I mean, I've had students come in lessons and like swear at me and cause all kinds of problems, and I had to write letters of recommendation for that student. And I would say the student encountered these problems and they don't appear to have coping mechanisms for those problems now. When they do, when they find these, they're going to be amazing people. I mean, you have to see, because that's often true. I wrote a student, it's really true. It's very, very hard to write a letter that's individual enough. I wrote one saying, this is not going to be the student who stands out in the audition, but you have to pay attention to the student because he will do more than the students that stood out in the audition. He will come back and he'll just like amaze you every week, which is, and so I sometimes when you write those kind of honest answers, you know, people say, we took that student because you didn't say he was great. You know, you said he had great potential, which I think is something for teachers. I was thinking about what makes for success in teaching. And I think there, which is an unasked question, but it might be a really good thing for us to consider as we get close to the 9 o'clock hour. I think assuming that what you're doing could be done better by you at all times is a very, very, very important thing. So the teacher is pushing excellence in the same way the student is. But more than that, I think it's absolute belief in the quality of the student, an absolute belief in the student's ability to do something that's beyond the evidence. Okay. Students come in, they think they can get this good. I think they can get this good. When I believe them in that way, they always get way better than I think they do. So I think, you know, this unconditional love that, you know, that my faith points me towards in all relationships, I think it has to be in students, and just accepting when they fail and saying when they're not, you know, living up to it, say, you can do way better than this, because students have a lot of doubt these days, right? I mean, with all the social media stuff, I mean, it's worse than ever. You know, one thing I would get rid of the epidemic of depression that has happened. Rob and Rebecca are relatively new to this, but it's, you guys, there's like 5-6 times the amount of depression now that there was when I started teaching. And it's all this idea of not believing in yourselves. So, you know, believe in yourselves and the value. You'll make it easier for your teachers.
And you're here for a purpose. You're already in the right chair. So just do with it what you can. Wow. Okay, I have one more sort of technical question that has been brought up, and then we will wrap things up for tonight. My technical question is, when it comes as a teacher, and when it comes to things like scholarships, and you have a group of people auditioning for you, what are you looking for when you have scholarships to split up? And what can students do to help themselves in that process?
Peter and Robin, you can probably answer this best. I haven't actually been in the audition process yet.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead, Peter.
Everybody wants, I can answer this in kind of a typical me fashion with a weird way, and then maybe something that might be a little bit, a weird, honest way, and then something that might be more helpful. We want to do our jobs easily. And what we want is an untamed stallion roaming the plains, just running. You know, we want all the talent in the world who will bend to our will and do everything we tell them. And that person doesn't really exist. So you're looking for, I've turned down people for my studio who play really, really, really well, because it's clear that they play so well that they're never going to need to learn from me. So I'm looking for a combination of somebody who doesn't need me and somebody who does need me.
I think that's a fantastic answer, actually.
Yeah, but selfishly, it's because we just want to make our job easy. How about you, Robin?
Well, let's see. Regarding scholarships, I mean, the best thing you can do is to play your very best, obviously. But also, in a place like Eastman, I know that it's very helpful to show that you really want to go to that school. Administrators actually can pick up on that, and to show that, you know, some places your priority. I think that they want to actually reward that. They want people here who want to be here specifically, so I don't know if that how much advice I have other than that.
I think that's fantastic advice, because they need the students auditioning not only need to demonstrate their skill and their ability to learn, they also need to demonstrate that they're auditioning because they actually want to go there. And I think I think those are really fair and balanced way to consider scholarships.
Yeah.
This is touching on a point that it's the flip side of the question is how do you get this job? If I say it's the world's greatest job, and I really do, I mean, I have this array of people that are really lovely and talented in their careers, and they talk to me as an old friend and mentor. It's really, really awesome. But sometimes people say the best way to get a teaching job is just be the most awesome player in the world, right? So the assumption is, well, Maya's saying no, but that is the assumption that if somebody is a great player, then they know more about how the instrument is played than other people. That may or may not be true. But if you want to be a teacher, you can't be a scrub. You have to be able to, at some time, play the instrument at its very, very highest level. Absolutely true. And then you can work your way up in the ranks, like I did, Wichita State University, Northwestern Oberlin, or you can become, Rebecca, I think your career is starting here at Oberlin because of the experiences you've had and the connections you've been in with the right group of people. And I'm not dissing that. That's very, very important, because then people will trust you. You've lived around those people, And then Robin, your career with the Yings started largely because of what a great player you were, and then you fit in with them in a very specific way, right? And then so I mean, there's a lot of things, but being a great player is actually important. There are not that many people who are great pedagogues who didn't at one time play really, really, really well.
Yeah, I think for the most part, yeah, that's the way it is.
Well, guys, we have hit the past the hour mark, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap us up. First of all, with oh wait, Peter, go please.
Two things. We do want to say invite your friends to Credo Club, do all that kind of stuff, which Ashley can talk about. But there's usually a lightning round.
I didn't prepare a lightning round for tonight.
We don't prepare a lightning round. This is
okay, guys. Type away.
Ask silly questions in the chat,
Go for it. I'll start reading them off.
Wait, sit-ups, that kind of stuff.
All right. Well, our very first lightning round question is favorite type of cheesecake.
Oh, the Godiva chocolate cheesecake from the Cheesecake Factory is unbelievable.
My wife's cheesecake.
Is it classic?
Is my aunt's recipe, so politically correct.
And Robin?
Oh, I don't know if there's it's like any cheesecake is what I would like to eat. So I don't know if I have a favorite.
Well, that's fantastic. All right, favorite sport to watch. Oh, I know this answer, Peace Low.
You think?
I do.
Maybe any college sport, but college basketball is fun.
What?
I love baseball, but if I'm just going to watch for like 20 minutes.
Tennis.
Robin?
That's funny. I always get frustrated watching college basketball. It's funny.
You like efficiency. You like people who can do the job.
Yeah. I'm always missing the NBA when I watch. Almost always missing the NBA when I watch college basketball.
Basketball is more predictable because they don't. Yeah. Anyway.
I do. Although I do wish they would call travel in the NBA. It really bothers me that they just don't really bother. They just let offensive players who abuse the rule, James Harden, do whatever they want and score 40 points a night. Sure. Or push the ball into their opponent and then claim that it was a foul. That sort of stuff. The stuff that superstars get away with. I do love watching basketball. I'm actually a pretty big Indiana Pacers fan because I grew up in Indianapolis, and so I watch quite a few of their games, especially when I'm on the road and I have the time to, or even while I practice occasionally. I also really like watching soccer. And the funny thing is that I played baseball all the time when I was a kid, but I don't really watch it very much anymore. I'm sort of a fair weather Yankees fan, but somehow I just don't really watch it. I do love the game though.
Rebecca, what was your sport?
I like watching tennis and basketball. Yeah.
Whew. You guys, basketball. All right. Favorite non-classical music genre, Rebecca?
Oh, so I was homeschooled and I have all these random holes in my musical education. And this past week I've been painting. We just bought a house and I've been painting and painting. And my husband's like, you need to listen to all of David Bowie. So I've been loving Ziggy Stardust, and like David Bowie is amazing. Yes.
Were we all homeschooled here? This is
Yes,
awesome.
I was too. I was homeschooled.
Me too. Okay,
Wow.
what's your favorite non-classical genre, Robin?
That's hard to say. Some types of folk music I really like, but then those, get incorporated into classical music too. Occasionally I'll hear a pop song, very occasionally, that I'm like, oh, that's not bad. I think jazz is pretty amazing. And I know that I could never do it at this point. But I don't listen to it all the time, but I do really like some great jazz.
And my kid's name is Miles David, so
Oh,
Peter.
okay.
Peter, what is yours?
Probably folk music. Yeah. I think I wanted to play the banjo when I grew up.
Nice.
I'll have intentions of that someday.
All right, hidden talents. We've got 2 more questions, guys. Hidden talent.
I can make really good bread.
Okay, that's cool.
It's not a talent though. I could put my foot behind my head. Is that a talent?
I don't know. Maybe, yeah.
Robin's going for it.
We're going down the rabbit hole now, guys.
Robin, I remember Yanni or Laurel. I can't remember which. I really had a very specific way of hearing it. I know that was the right way, by the way. That was one of the questions just now.
Yes, I saw Yanni or Laurel.
Hidden talent. I think that most people who know me would say that imitations of various musical personalities are probably my hidden talent. So yeah.
Yeah, hidden talent. If you ask my grandkids, it's balancing things on my head, because I just put like weird things on my head, and then they have to stay there. Bottle of hand sanitizer, But I'm actually not that good at it, but it's what I like to do that. Hidden talent is maybe impersonations of people.
Oh, see, that's what I meant. Yeah, same thing.
But musical impersonations are awesome. By the way, teaching technique: have your students impersonate other people in the studio.
Oh yeah.
If you do that in a non-offensive fashion, it reveals a lot about what they see. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I've been sticking to can you play this more like high fits?
Yeah, I tell my kids, play this like Primrose. Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right, last one. Favorite season: spring, summer, autumn, winter.
I like spring. In Vermont, I like spring because it's just all mud, and I like mud. So I like mud season.
Are you from Vermont?
Yeah, I'm from this back country road in Vermont, and it's just dirt road. And I just love mud. I don't know why.
Like what area of Vermont? Southern, northern, middle?
Northern,
okay.
Middle. Yeah, upper third.
I see. Okay, I spent a lot of summers in southern Vermont, so that's what I was wondering. I think I like fall or late summer, but fall.
I think it might be something with age, because I used to be all about spring, and it's still wonderful, but fall is like the best weather. It's you can go running.
And it's your birthday. Our birthday,
right? But I don't know. A lot of people, mature people, like fall. There's Rochester Winter, which starts about,
already.
Yeah, it starts like in October 25th or something. Extends to March 93rd.
This year we basically didn't have a spring. It was cold and wet in mid-May. This was worse than the other years, I feel like. And then it just and even it was chilly in June even. It was weird. Very strange.
June is really special though.
But if you go to like the flower festival or something, yeah. But the fall here is really spectacular. The weather is really amazing, and summer is very nice. It's not too hot. So summer was, once it finally came, summer was great because it's not quite as hot as some other places. So yeah.
Now that we've wrapped up Vivaldi, I am going to say a couple of housekeeping, guys. If you're not part of the Credo Club Facebook group, I just put the link in the chat. Go join, because all of our details are there. Parents can join, teachers can join, students as young as 8, 9, well, their parents can join. Obviously, you have to be 13 to have a Facebook page. But this is where all the new and exciting Credo Club stuff like this is going to get posted there, as well as getting posted on our YouTube page. So subscribe to the YouTube page, join the Facebook group, be part of Credo Club, because this community and these amazing students that I'm so excited to be able to see most of your faces. This is such a cool community. It's a cool group of people to get to do music and grow and go into our careers with. So join us and be on the lookout for our December service project video, which is getting edited and will be coming out. Thank you to everybody that submitted videos for that. It was super cool and it's going to be awesome. So really excited. Peter, any last minute farewell details?
Yeah, just looking ahead. So when we started Credo Club, we wanted to do things like this, which are really great. We love it. Being able to kind of open up to you guys about all these, Cheesecake and favorite sport and all those good kinds of things. But also the idea of being together. And then, the pandemic got way worse once we announced this. And so we haven't been able to do that. When people are able to come together in whenever, summer, middle of the summer, end of the summer, late summer, next fall, wouldn't it be great if they could do so in a joyous, non-threatening musical community that wants to serve and love their neighbors? And so that's what Credo Club is all about. So we're really trying to establish the connections and the infrastructure now, so that when we can do things together, we can have all this kind of joy, like service days, like every month with our friends. So it's you can't do things now, but keep gathering people who can, because once that starts happening, it's going to be super fun.
It's going to be everywhere across the country, and we've got people in Europe and we've got people in Southeast Asia. So be on the lookout. This is going to be incredible. Thank you so much, Rebecca, Robin, and Peter, for joining us and being part of this. And thank you all the students for hopping on here live. And this will be posted here this week. So hope you all have a wonderful evening and Merry Christmas.
Take care, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.